In the 2025th year of our Lord, the 2A community's collective prayer for more US-made optics was finally answered in the form of the PLX HTX-1. But how American-made is it? And does this departure from the usual Chinese imports merit the clearly higher price from Primary Arms? Here is our deep dive into everything you need to know about this new enclosed Reflex sight. When the optic was first announced to us, we approached the launch with a healthy amount of skepticism. We pressed our contact there, Stephen Morgan, for details on the optic, and he hit us back with an offer to come see where the magic happens and allow the product and the manufacturing process to speak for itself. But before we get into how the experience went, let's get into the specs.
Franklin Armory, those freedom facilitators who brought you twice the pews with their binary firing system, because it's a scientific fact that bad guys with twice as many holes in them are half as dangerous. So in the unfortunate event you should ever need your firearm for defense, remember, it's math. It can't be wrong.
And by Aguila Ammunition. ARs can be hungry little beasties, but rifle ammo usually only comes in boxes of 20 when standard magazines hold 30. That's dumb and makes puppies sad, so Aguila Ammunition packages their 5.56 in 30-round boxes. It also is available in sealed battle packs and keeps the ammo tasting fresh for the apocalypse. The PLX HTX-1 is first and foremost an enclosed emitter reflex sight. Now, what does that mean? Most common pistol sights are referred to as open emitter reflex sights. Think of the Trijicon RMR, Leupold Delta Point Pro, and so on. These sights project a reticle from the emitter diode onto the objective lens and reflect that back into the shooter's eye. These have traditionally only one lens and giving an incredibly good field of view and providing the user with a least obstructive optic experience on the market in most cases. Red dots are all of what a reflex sight is, but with a second lens between the shooter's eye and the objective lens and in an enclosed housing. Though this closed system obviously has durability advantages over their reflex sight brothers, their view from the shooter's eye tends to be a bit more obscured, like looking through a tube, and the glass clarity between them becomes an issue on cheaper dots due to there simply being more to look through. The HTX manages to thread the needle between the two and deliver a sight that offers the advantages of both. If your pistol is remotely pointed in the right direction, you barely notice the housing. Ironically, your now co-witnessed standard height iron sights are the most obstructive thing in your sight picture due to how low the deck height of the optic is. The deck height is so low, in fact, that the bottom of the lens is practically even with the top of the slide when mounted on the pistol. This is achieved by likely the most innovative part of this optic, which is the mounting system. This optic comes with what Primary Arms is calling their modular chassis system for their mounting solution. The bottom of the optic has a series of removable plates that allows you to change between practically any footprint imaginable. PA currently supports RMR A, B, and Glock MOS footprints, and it's all included in the box. Stephen stiff-armed me before I could ask about the million other footprints and advised that they would have an offering for all other ones, either directly or in collaboration with other manufacturers. The emitter does come with 11 brightness settings, 3 of which are compatible with night vision. We hope to do more testing and comparison with this. And it will come with a single 4 MOA dot and the ACSS Vulcan dot reticle for those of you that have grown accustomed to that system. So not a chevron for those of you that asked for that. Again, they listened. It utilizes a side-loading battery compartment that takes the venerable CR2032 battery, providing you anywhere from 10,000 to 25,000 hours of runtime, depending on conditions and use. It does have their auto live feature, which works to have the dot shut off if it's still for long periods of time and kick back on at the slightest motion to ensure both battery life and usability. The windage and elevation adjustments are of the 1 MOA variety. The rubberized push buttons are tactile and set well into the housing. Me, being my usual problematic self, tried to pull the rubber cover and Stephen laughed at my attempt while explaining that the design accounts for that and interfaces with the housing in a way to make that failure point pretty difficult to defeat. Primary Arms has been in development of this optic for years now. Marshall Lerner himself confirmed that they set out to accomplish this project 3 to 4 years prior just to see if it could be done. PA went through hundreds of different prototypes for housings, lenses, materials, assembly processes before landing on the HTX that is now coming to market. More impressively, they found US-based manufacturers for all but one part of the optic. Apparently, the crystals that need to be grown for the diodes can only be grown in Germany and China, so for the sake of keeping it Western, they source those from their friends in Deutschland. All of the soldering points were potted or sealed with an epoxy-type resin to make them more shock and temperature resistant. The argon-filled internal chamber was pressure tested and temperature tested to ensure no moisture could get in and will maintain the seal even through thermal variance caused by environmental heating and cooling. Even the lens collimation process was evaluated, where they decided to buy a goniometer to aid in the assembly process to achieve a true parallax-free mounting of the front and rear lenses. Every single step was then required to go through temperature, pressure, and torture testing all over again before the guys in the product development were satisfied. What we're left with at the end of the day was the most American-made optic possible, designed to outlive the service life of most pistols. On top of that, it comes with a lifetime warranty. After watching Steven beat the HTX on a barrel like it owed him money and give it a few 40-yard chunks in the air, I'm slowly beginning to believe in the hype of what it could mean for American manufacturing of accessories. Similar to Night Force and Surefire, there are associated costs to keeping manufacturing here in the States, and like those manufacturers, I doubt the complaint will be that the product isn't superior, but that it's just expensive. And to that, I would agree. Primary Arms and others will still import parts to make it cheaper for the end user to have a solution to everyone's tactical needs. But I respect the hell out of PA for going through the pain and investment to provide a truly American-made product and to encourage the supply chain and workforce to be supported here domestically. If more companies did it, the cost would come down. So now that you're done listening to my sultry voice and me go into all of the pre-made notes so that you don't yell at me about accuracy, we are here with our more subjective experience because we called him out and we're like, I think it was we did a podcast with Steven and you like challenged him unknowingly. This was like a year ago.
Oh yeah. It was like the Padme meme, asking him like, hey, you guys should do like enclosed. Everyone else started doing closed. You guys should do enclosed. This was about a year ago. And he was just kind of like, looked at me quietly, didn't say anything. I was just like, okay.
So we're doing an enclosed dot? Maybe. So it was a cool, he teased us like a year ago about it. We did challenge him once it came out that they were going to launch it. We got to talk to him a little bit before SHOT Show. And I was like, look, bro, before you get excited and start trying to sell this to me, people are going to ask, like legit, how much is this coming from the States? And he's like, I'll do you one better. You can come see it, because we happen to both be in Texas. And we actually got to go see where they were assembled. We got to talk to everybody on the team that's part of the assembly and like the design process. And then we even got to meet Marshall himself, which was kind of mega based.
Yeah.
It was cool. I think from the top down, getting to talk to Steven, getting to talk to all of the guys on the design and like the implementation team that were like, this room did not exist 5 years ago.
And from what I understand, supply chain took them a little while to build. HTX, the only thing that doesn't come from the United States is the crystal for the LED, which I'm sure if you've watched videos on this, everyone else has mentioned, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But they're actually assembling the LED here. The crystal that they need, though, is a very specific, and the only two places that do it are a lab in China and a lab in Germany. And so instead of giving more money to China, they
stick it
to
at NATO.
Germany. Exactly.
It was wild, though, to see, because they kind of explained some of the pain points of trying to get that supply chain. And they were like, dude, even just for the housing, we kept getting pickier with what we wanted out of the housing. And eventually, like, you would have machine shops that would laugh at them. They're like, nobody's going to do that.
Well, between that and then I think they also said, like, they couldn't get coatings, the correct coatings for the lenses that they needed. And
then even, like, the assemblers, like, you got to imagine, like, but he's like, the amount of times that we basically had to develop the training and train the people to know how to do bedding and epoxying and this kind of soldering we wanted to see and all of that kind of, like, all of this process did not exist before we did it, at least locally. We would have had to try to go pull somebody from out of there. Even putting the glass inside the housing and all of that, everything they got, like,
well, and I still think that
about.
people don't understand, like, how in the beginning stages they still are. So when you kind of see it from that perspective, it kind of starts to justify the price. Like, you can see where, like, all of the, I guess, money is exchanging hands, and it is all staying in the States, which is pretty cool. Aesthetically, it's a good looking dot.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It checks a lot of boxes. I think it's cool that the actual chassis system and how it sits on your dot is pretty cool. You don't necessarily have to have a certain cut. It's kind of adaptable to a wide range of cuts.
Yep.
I'm trying not to, like, simp super hard for it, but it's one of the better looking enclosed red dots that I've seen.
And for me, it was kind of the way that they went into the process of like, okay, well, what causes dots to fail? Seals, right? Especially when we talk about enclosed dots, and like the way that they went into how they were putting the glass together, being worried about like, I think it's thermogenic heat shift, basically, that as metal gets hot, it shifts. Well, glass doesn't, right? It doesn't expand or contract. Or if you have internal parts that aren't made out of the exact same metal, those might move depending on how hot or how cold this optic got, the type of gas that they were using, how you nitrogen purge something, how you do all of that stuff. All of those processes were evaluated and tested. They put more rounds through guns to test that optic than most people will do in there. Most families, most departments might do in a year. Like, it's pretty wild the amount of iterative testing they did for it.
Yeah.
And what was impressive to me was that all of it was designed around trying to fight and combat failure points. And they were saying that, like, every single time they would look at it, they would say, so even like the way the chassis system embeds the actual housing of the dot itself is designed to both give you like torsion resistance, front and back resistance, and then also like lifting, because you don't have this humongous plate. You're not like super far off the slide. And so even if a blow is coming in on the optic housing, it's not with 3 inches of leverage to clip the top of it to really pull on screws.
Yeah.
Like even the plate, like the chassis system plate to housing fitment was wild. I had to use a pry tool to get it apart because of how well they're machining that. They're already starting to work. I think Agency Arms was one of the companies that they were saying that like their cut's very particular to them. So to get that perfect fit, they just gave the chassis foot. They're like, here's the dimensions you need it by if you want it to fit. And Agency's like, perfect. Here you go, and you already have it, and it fit beautifully. And you'll probably see that with, we'll see if Glock does it, but I'm sure someone will make an MOS plate for us. I think it already comes compatible with Glock MOS plates.
At first, seeing the price, it is kind of like, well, that's a lot to pay for a dot.
Right.
But when you start to see, what's on the other end of that, you actually have manufacturing here in the States. So no matter what happens, if...
Yeah, well, and I think really the investment in that supply chain creates it. So now not only do I have somebody that can assemble it, I have somebody that can now mill the housings. I have somebody that can mill all the internal parts for like the not erector sets, but basically how you do windage and elevation. There's a bunch of tiny little parts that require very specific coatings and heat treatments and all. But all of that process is starting to exist here. Once it exists here, maybe other manufacturers look at that. And maybe the more people buy into that supply chain, the cheaper those things get. So anyways, if you are a purveyor of the internet and would like to discuss this further, you can go ahead and put your comments in the comment section below. You can argue, discuss, or have high fives because we're all collectively poor and some of us won't be able to have one of these. But support these companies that are supporting you. If you want to support our efforts, obviously you can subscribe to this channel. You can also go and check us out on Discord or on any of the socials at AR15Com. Or like we said, you can go check it out in the forums and support companies like PA that are supporting your right to the Second Amendment. Go out there, go shoot your guns. More importantly, go clean them because they don't work when they're dirty sometimes. After that, I appreciate your time, and we'll see you guys in the next one.